Hi there, folks. Just wanted to take a couple of minutes to share some thoughts with you, which hopefully will be valuable in this challenging time that we find ourselves in. I've been taking a moment to reflect on one of the books of scripture that I absolutely love, that I come back to time and again, and that's, I think, quite easily forgotten actually in the wonderful canon of scripture, and that's the book of Habakkuk. One that maybe people don't come back to very often. It's a minor prophet just at the end of the Old Testament. But a fantastic book, a little bit like Job, but in miniature, much shorter. And in it we find the prophet of God, Habakkuk, in his first chapter, lamenting, praying, being honest with God with the uncertainty that he has. He looks to his nation and they seem to have lost focus. The priorities are not the things of God, but they're selfish priorities, which just don't seem to be focused in the right places. And then he looks to the horizon and he sees this threat looming, the threat of the Chaldeans, this nation who would come down and eventually take the people of Judah into exile. And he sees this uncertainty both at home and afar, and he does not know what to do with it. So he brings it to God. Honestly, he brings to God his uncertainty, his questions, his challenges in all that is going on. And I think that can be really helpful as a picture for us. There are times in life, like just now, when we can look around and we just don't quite get why things are the way they are, where there are challenges and uncertainties that maybe feel overwhelming, that give us concern and worry and anxiety. Well, these things we can bring to God. We can be honest with God about how we feel, about what we see, and just bring that to Him in prayer. And I would really encourage you to do it. Don't bottle things up, but be real with God with what you're feeling and what you're thinking, because let's be honest, He knows it anyway. But then, crucially, Habakkuk does something so important, which is the same for each of us. At the beginning of chapter 2, it speaks of how he goes to his watchtower, he sits and he waits to hear what God will say. We can bring our honest reflections, our challenges, the things that kind of catch our mind and our hearts, we can bring them to God. But then are we willing to stop and wait and listen, to be patient before God, to hear what he has to say? Well, that's what Habakkuk does. And it transforms his perspective. Now, admittedly, God doesn't quite give the response that you might expect. He isn't addressing directly some of the concerns that Habakkuk raises, but rather he calls Habakkuk to a different perspective, a wide lens perspective of all time and all history, where God has been at work from beginning to end, and he calls Habakkuk to trust him, because we can look at the immediate in front of us and we can feel overwhelmed and we can feel uncertain. But God is at work and has been at work and will be at work. That wide perspective on God, what God is doing throughout all time. It changes our perspective. It's an invitation in faith to step back, to take a step back and look on at the greater picture of what is going on in the world and how God is truly at work in it. And at the end, it leads Habakkuk to a very simple but powerful conclusion where he says these words: "Though the fig tree should not blossom, nor fruits be on the vines, the produce of the olive fail, and the fields yield no fruit, the flocks be cut off from the fold, and there be no herd in the stalls, yet I will rejoice in the Lord. I will take joy in the God of my salvation. God, the Lord is my strength. He makes my feet like the deer. He makes me tread on my high places." I invite you today to take a moment to be honest with God, to be real with where you're at, but then to sit back, to wait, to listen, to hear what he has to say, and to take that step of faith to see the bigger picture, to step into what he is doing and to trust him, to trust his plan, his purposes, his call on each and every one of our lives, and to be led to the high places that only he can bring us. Thank you.